British Council and NELTA, and all the enthusiastic participants. This is Sarita Dewan, training coordinator of NELTA. Let me introduce a young, dynamic topic, integrating cultural learning and critical thinking in the EFL classroom, Mr. Gunaraj Nepal. Mr. Nepal is a lecturer of English at Sukhna Multiple Campus Morang, Biswa Adarsa College, Sunzari. He is also the chair of NELTA Morang branch. He has spent more than 20 years in the field of teaching. He has facilitated several sessions on EL teachers across Nepal. He has presented papers and given plenaries both at the provincial and national conferences of NELTA. Currently, he is an MPhil scholar at Kathmandu University School of English Language Education. His research and pedagogical interests include critical thinking, ecological approach to English language teaching, and interdisciplinary studies. Now, I would like to welcome Mr. Nepal. Over to you, sir. Thank you. Gunara, sir?
Okay.
Gunara, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Now the floor is open for you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, madam. So thank you so much, Sarita, madam, for your generous introduction. I'm very grateful to British Council and NELTA for this opportunity. Hello, everyone. I hope you can all hear me. So here on the screen, was a welcome slide with some information. I guess this is the third slide. As a presenter and on behalf of British Council and NELTA, I would like to welcome all of you to this webinar. So there are some housekeeping rules before we begin. So let me read out. If you are not the speaker, please keep yourself on mute. It is recommended that you switch off your video during the presentations. Use the chat box in case you have any question for the presenters. Use the raise hand button in case you have something important to say. Sarita ma'am?
Yes. Is there anything?
Sir, any problem?
This slide is not moving.
Oh.
Please move it. Next slide.
Radhaji, can you help Guna sir?
Sir, could you please close it and then reshare? Meanwhile, we'd appreciate if all participants please switch off your videos. Kindly switch off your videos so that the connectivity would be better. Thank you.
Is that all right now?
Yes, sir. Yes. Go ahead, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir, you can start.
Okay, so sorry. All right, so here are the objectives of this webinar, and this brings us to the beginning of the main session. As you can see on the screen, I'll be particularly talking about how we can integrate cultural learning and critical thinking in the EFL classroom. I mean, in the context of an EFL lesson. The reason is obvious. Critical thinking being one of the important 21st century skills and culture being a part of everyone's life, I'm sure you already realize the importance of the integration between these two. And therefore, in order to expand the horizon of our understanding in that direction, I will also be sharing some useful links and resources. Dear ma'am, could you please correct? There is a disturbing sound. Disturbing sound.
Yes, yes, we can hear you, sir. Please go ahead. We can hear
All right.
you.
So having shared the objectives of this webinar, so I would like to take you to my agenda. My agenda for this webinar is built on these three questions. As there is a global emphasis on the need for schools to focus more on critical thinking skills, one pertinent question for the teachers might be, what is critical thinking and what it actually looks like in an EFL context? This is the crucial question because knowing that critical thinking is important is not the same as how it actually works in the EFL context. Secondly, it is becoming increasingly clear that what needed to explore culture is critical thinking. This awareness is meaningful because all people, in fact, all our learners, are at least one culture. Whether or not we realize it, the culture we belong to affects how we think, interact, and communicate with ourselves and knowledge. And finally, come to the third question I had. Our teachers that tell us how we can be understanding within the context of our English language classes. Simply having the knowledge of language skill will not give learners real insights into the classroom. So when I say science, I also mean it to be an opportunity. Because just think, with critical thinking skills at your side as teachers, you can travel across hundreds of young minds, and you can become the moderator of your students' thinking. So, having set my agenda around those three questions, I would like to collect some of your concepts about culture. So, can you please write in the chat box, when you think of culture, what comes to your mind? What do you think of? Or if you think in another way, means if you associate culture, means if you wish to associate culture with something, what comes to your mind? So when I think of culture, I think of, please do write. And when, okay, you associate culture, what do you associate with? Could you please give a try? Ma'am, can you help me the response by the participants? Or the response by the participants? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There are some. I can see some comments there.
Okay. So it's not visible here. So could you please?
Yes. Yeah. No, it says culture is the identity of person uh, in the socio, political, or religious behavior. Dipendra Bastola.
Okay, all
And
right.
Kamal Khanal says regular practice as a custom for long in a certain community or society.
Okay,
Uh, says multiculturality,
okay,
and then some says human. Sorry, yes, ideas and social behavior. Um, yes, Sonu says I think of myself dealing with people the way I talk and the way I behave.
okay,
Giving
all
a
right.
me. Yes, I think
All right, ma'am.
that is fine with you.
Okay, all
Would you
right.
like to read some more? Yes. Surendra, I think this is interesting. Surendra says, with tradition, custom, festivals, and celebrations.
Okay, all right.
That is Surendra Kumar.
Okay, so thank you, dear participants. Okay, you are right in your observation that when we think of culture, we often think of identity of people and shared behavior in the community and regular customs and multiculturality, a big term you have chosen, and you have also chosen festivals and celebrations. That's perfect. To simplify it, I would say that when we think of culture, we often think of artifacts such as food, clothing, music, art, or literature. Or we may associate culture with conventions such as social interaction patterns, values, ideas, and attitudes. That's fantastic. Now, now, what are the elements of culture? There is literature available for us to improve our understanding of culture. One way of looking at the culture is through the three P's model: perspectives, practice, and product. While products may be easy to identify because we can often see, touch, taste, or hear them, perspective and practices are not easily recognized because they tend to be ingrained in a society. So like products in the three P's model, as you can see below, the elements of formal culture or surface culture are easily observable across cultures. So, however, as the label suggests, elements of deep culture are often difficult to identify, as they tend to be value-based and deeply rooted in the psyches of individuals who make up a specific culture. So these ideas help us, some tangible and intangible aspects of culture, explicit, implicit aspects of culture, some concrete or abstract aspects of culture. Okay. Sorry. Sorry. Oops. What's happening? Again, there is the same problem.
Yes, it's okay, Gunachar. There is some disturbances, but it's okay. You please carry on.
Okay. Some disturbances means am I audible enough,
Yeah.
our participants?
No, no. Your screen is sometimes disturbing.
Oh
There's
yes.
some. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry. So raising students' cultural awareness. Now, by inviting students to explore the cultural elements from their own culture, teachers can help students connect to the target culture, raise their awareness of cultural differences. And to take you to what Palmer and Sarifian tell us, Increasingly, language teachers are recognizing the need to incorporate socio-cultural factors into their classroom. And as the world becomes more interconnected, our learners need to be encouraged to understand right from the basic level how all human beings are unique individual in terms of age, gender, personality, abilities, or nationalities. And the third, citation helps us understand that we can prepare our students to understand world culture better only when we help them understand their own culture. So, dear participants, what I'm trying to establish is that, I try to give you some quick ideas about what we understand by culture, what are the, elements of culture, and then I directed you to understanding, why, how we can raise students' cultural awareness. Now, okay, now there are reflection questions for you. Many teachers in Nepalese context might recognize this general criticism of education system. You might have heard Vidyanath Koirala and Manaprasad Wagle, speak very vehemently about the education system that, we have developed. Means if the argument built on is that if the syllabus and textbook primarily focus on the language skills and encourage teachers to teach towards examination, do we need to encourage teaching critical thinking for cultural learning? If our major focus is on the language skills, as you can obviously see, or teaching our learners towards examination, do we really need to? And then there is another belief is that the concept and skills for critical thinking in cultural learning is only at more advanced level. Are they essential at every level? Or is the earlier better? So teacher, why I put this question? There is a long-standing debate about the real purpose of education. Transfer knowledge. So is it to teach a student how to think and learn? So let us reflect. Then there are some valuable inputs, means, to help us support, our critical reflection. These valuable inputs help us understand how the teaching of culture enhances students' overall learning experience and how critical thinking can help them enrich that experience. Krams argues that the role of culture in language teaching is central. It is always there in the background, right from day one when we are dealing with a foreign language. And Vernier et al. Also consider that culture as a fifth skill enhances students' overall learning experience. And Dumi and Hughes demonstrate, a practical model of ELT and argue that critical thinking skills can be used to achieve a greater understanding of individual words and sentences and we can thereby lead our students to understand larger discourses or or any issues. So then having said this all, let me, take you to, a picture, an image that I have taken from grade 6. How does the lesson begin? How should it begin? These are the images, as I said earlier, from grade 6. there are two questions placed above the reading comprehension, entitled weight, and the picture next to it is placed somewhere in the middle of the reading comprehension. I have brought these images here to argue that if a teacher solely and blindly relies on what is given in the textbook, I would say both teachers and students will lose wonderful thinking opportunities. At this moment, I remember one blog article, How to Become a Boring Teacher. Interesting, isn't it? And in that article, the writer says that one of the ways of becoming a boring teacher is to teach a textbook as it is, as if it is a complete, a package, as if we cannot stretch the zone of it, as if it's our mantra or Bible. So this might sound, a bit extreme, but if we see, if we as teachers see nothing beyond the textbook, or if we are reluctant to expand the zone of the lesson and rely on what is given, as I display on the screen here, then I think we as teachers are losing a lot of wonderful opportunities that we can employ to enhance students thinking opportunities. I will get back to these images later to explore thinking opportunities available here. So then before I take you to some practical examples, I would like to offer something substantial for understanding critical thinking as well. I have included these two images here. The first figure looks at critical thinking and active learning in terms of questions and teaching objectives. The idea is that, simply remembering some fact is a very low level question and objective. At the other end of the list is the high level act of creating new ideas or making new inferences. So while there is a need to work at all levels by going beyond questions that require simple memory or recall, we as teachers help students develop higher levels of critical thinking. And then there is, the next figure, means the second one. Dumi and Hugh present their own framework that classifies the thinking process into three broad levels. And they have, the three broad levels are basic comprehension, critical thinking, and creative thinking. By basic comprehension, they mean understanding the essential meaning of a word, a sentence, or text, or an idea. And included in the idea of basic comprehension is testing learners' ability to recall and then apply. Then they, have presented critical thinking in the middle of, in between basic comprehension and critical thinking. They treat critical thinking as a mindset that enables learners to arrive at deeper understanding of the target language. And they tell us that, critical thinking helps students to reach a point where the language learned can be applied in more effective and judicious way. And another very important observation they make is, that, they tell us critical thinking has a place at every level, from university to primary education. So they remind us a very important fact that we must not fall into the trap of equating lower language proficiency with a lower order of thinking. So then very quickly, I would like to make mention of, this critical thinking. First is remembering. It is, according to them, is focused on recall of keywords or facts, deals with, what, when, and when questions. Means when students are tested by having them who, what, and when questions, by having them answer who, what, and when questions, then, our teaching is focused on remembering. Then, understanding means when students are focused on constructing meaning by connecting new ideas with existing knowledge, then, it is understanding. Means it teaches good students the rule for forming some regular verbs, for example, in the past tense. And as a result, students understand that when they see a verb ending in ed, they understand that, it is past action. So understanding. And then, then there is applying, means testing out newly gained knowledge in many ways towards the use of, real communication. Then there is analyzing, breaking concepts down into individual parts and seeing how they contribute to overall structure of or meaning. Then evaluating, and it refers to making judgment based on their own or someone else's criteria. And it, takes students or leads students to check and critique others' ideas and works as well. And finally, that's creating, that's a wholly original. It encourages students to come up with something wholly original or unique using language or concepts, learned. Then critical thinking in the context of an EFL lesson. So let me take you back to the picture that I had, mentioned it before. I had displayed it. So please use the chat box. There is an activity, a popular activity, think, see, think, and wonder. And in this activity we can use anytime, in any moment of the lesson. And this is basically used to stimulate curiosity or make predictions or careful observation and thoughtful interpretations. Now, you can use it in the beginning or in the middle or in the end And this will, this will help students, develop their, observing skills, develop metaphorical thinking, making predictions, and writing and, speaking, and even listening to other students. And what and how it can be how can it be done, and what is all about? You can use a work of art relevant to the theme with the 3 key questions, like what do you see in the picture, and what do you think about it, what are your thoughts, and what does it make you wonder? Now, if I used this, for you to employ this activity, how would you do it? So can you use the chat box? For example, you are using this image for your students, and you are asking 3 key questions. What do you see? What do you think about, and what are your thoughts? And what does it make you wonder? How would you do it? So let us try. If you ask, it means if I ask you, what do you see in the picture? How would you respond to my question? And the second question, what do you think about and what are your thoughts? What would you write? And if I ask you, what does it make you wonder? What would you write? Could you please? You can use the chat box. Sarita ma'am, are you there?
I'm here. I'm here. Don't worry, I'm here.
So I cannot see their responses. So could you please?
Yeah, sure. Yes, there are lots of comments in the chat box, so I think I can read only 2 or 3. Okay.
Okay.
So moving faster. Okay, 3 boys who had their Bartabanda, Chudakarma, and they are asking for alms according to their culture. One answer. The second one is culture behavior of monks. Monks make me surprised. Somebody writes. Okay, 3 Nepalese Brahmins, students, and a rich man of rural area. And then I think it's about Gurukul. This is going faster. I think they are going to visit some holy place. And somebody writes, three
Actually,
Brahmin boys asking for.
okay, actually
Yes.
means when they frame questions, how would they ask their students? Means, what do you see in the picture? They ask and they are sharing us responses, right?
Yeah, they have written about the picture, which is displayed on the screen.
Okay.
Yes, Bani Dinesh says they are spreading knowledge.
Okay, all right.
Okay, 3 Brahmins asking for directions. Gita Bandari, Bhattarai.
Okay.
3 students and his teacher, Julit. 3 monks are asking something, Janu Katamang. So they are explaining about that you have displayed on the screen.
Okay.
So are these the things you are looking for, or you want to have critical answers?
No, I cannot see their answer, but thank you very much, okay, for this active participation. So the
Yes, there are lots actually. Yeah,
yes, ma'am.
there are many actually. I can't read all because it's moving faster. I can't read all.
Okay, all right. So
So yes, most of the answers are same. They're talking about the three Brahmins.
okay.
Yeah.
So the point I wanted to establish through this small exercise is that, you know, if a teacher builds questions around the image presented in the textbook, it's a very simple example. We can give our students a lot of opportunities to think. It means, what do you see in the picture? It means they see the Brahmins with their pigtails. They seem to be asking or something. They seem to be looking for something. And when we if we begin our lesson with these 3 simple key questions, it gives them room to think about. And at the hand of a very skillful teacher, a good connection can be established, between their understanding, their present understanding and the understanding about Brahmin culture. So So we can use this activity anytime because this doesn't ask anything from the teacher. Any image, any artifact, anything can be used to generate dialogues in the classroom. So now, now there is another example for you. This example I have taken from grade 8. You please have a look at the questions. The quick look means where did the writer go on holiday? How many members were there on the journey and who were they? Where was the writer from? Did the writer like Ghalegaon? How do you know? How were the writer and her parents treated in Ghalegaon? Describe Ghalegaon in 5 sentences. So now here is a reading text for you. So could you please go through or skim through? These were the questions. These were the questions. Where did the writer go? How many members? Where was the writer from? And did the writer like Ghalegaon and this all? How were the writer and parents treated in Ghalegaon, and describe Ghalegaon in 5 sentences? Okay. So please go through it and then we will see where the answers are located.
Excuse me, ma'am, sorry to disturb you. My chat has been.
Hello.
Excuse me, sir, why the chat has been disabled for me? I can't write anything.
Chat box is open for everyone, sir. It's open for everyone.
Excuse me, ma'am, it's not working.
Chat box, it's not working properly. So please tell me.
Chat box is also not working for me as well.
Administrator ma'am, could you fix it?
Hello everyone, even my chat box is also not working. It is disabled.
No, it's working. I've just written. Yeah, I've just written. See?
Still, it's
See,
not
it's
working.
working.
Not working.
Okay.
Chat box is not working.
Problem that the chat is not enabled.
So
So if you log,
It is disabled.
yeah.
hello.
The administrator has disabled the chat. It has said that.
Hi everyone, we do not disable any answer chat box. Just log in and out again.
Radhaji, can you help?
Yes,
Hello,
so I've
Radhaji, can you help?
I've written in the type that it's not working. Please log off and then try again. We do not disable chat box. So please do try again.
Yeah.
So
There must your own laptop. Yeah. So
This is a
it's
disable
working.
chat
It's
box, ma'am.
working.
But why is there?
I
No,
think there is
it's
some
working, sir. It's
problem.
working.
It is working. It is working somewhere. Maybe.
It must be a problem with your only. Yeah. See, we can see so many comments coming out.
All right. So, ma'am, dear ma'am, if participants are done with the reading, then I could, okay, go to the next slide. I think they are done.
Would you
No, I do
would you
not
like to
want
read?
to. No, ma'am, I do not
We are
want to
done.
have responses from them. I just wanted them to read this passage and just note, where the answers are located. So, dear
Okay.
participants, dear participants, now check it out. Uh, how the answers are located. The members means I, the writer, father, or stranger, and mother. You can see that. And how was the writer how was the writer treated? The writer was treated with proper hospitality. You can see in the last paragraph. And describe the Ghalegaon in 5 sentences. You can see, all the answer in the second paragraph. You just see, so when you see this passage and the questions, what comes to your mind? That's my main question. Now, what I wish to argue is that this question seems to ensure basic comprehension. There is no doubt. However, an opportunity has been missed to get students to engage more with the language and culture at a deeper level. You just reflect back, the writer's members, where the writer went, how the writer was treated, means many things readily or high level. So here is citation expert that says the danger in this kind of comprehensive plan when we do not encourage our students to be lower order thinking. They want to be able to learn new language, and their learning will be limited to the lower level of thinking. So they argue that we should allow our students to have some critical thinking opportunities, and that is possible only when we frame questions or design questions, or extend the questions given in the text a little higher. So that's their argument, and that is what I would like to present with you. And I have quoted, a often cited definition by Annis, who tells us that critical thinking is all about reflective thinking. It should give our students to reflect often why something is true, why something is meaningful, how something makes sense in a certain context, how we see or what we can do in that regard. With both questions, I was trying to argue that that opportunity. So it is, once again. So the question is there anything in this question? And if you agree with me, as I said earlier, the questions that I presented but incomplete. There is a disturbing sound in the background. Could you please, okay, fix it, madam? So, is there anything incomplete in these questions, in terms of critical thinking or in terms of the relationship between language and culture? So, how would you do these questions? Very quickly, I could take back to the questions. Where did the writer go? How many members? Where was the writer from? Did the writer like? And how were the parents, the writer and parents, treated in Galigaon and described Galigaon? All right, and then we noticed that this is how the answers are located. Fine, and it goes to so that students do not have to take much effort for finding answers. Now, what would you do if you were to teach this lesson? Is there anything that you could aid so that you could give more thinking opportunities for your students? Would you see any obvious link between language and culture, and that can be capitalized to have a richer discussion in the classroom? Once again, please give a reflective thoughts on this and share your ideas. I would pick up only a couple of ideas from the chat. Some questions that really requires students to think quite deeply, or a question that directs students to find some link in language and culture, or anything that leads student to think more critically. Please use the chat. Dear Sarita Madam, I just wanted to get some couple of responses from the chat box.
Yes, Lakpa Sherpa says, yeah, I could take my students to visit the nearest place and let them do the research. Lakpa Sherpa.
Okay.
And then Binod Dawadi says, mostly questions cover the text, although critical thinking hasn't properly been reflected so far. Okay, and Acharya says, yes, Gale's culture of welcoming guests.
Okay, all right.
Similarly, Indira Acharya says, their food items, what they eat.
Okay, all right.
Srijana Dahal, okay. Srijana Dahal says, as a teacher, we can design our own questions that can touch the cultural aspect of the society.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Chandra, yeah, he says, how did the villagers welcome? How did the guests feel about their journey? Is it inform India or foreign land? Is it in form of India or foreign land? Yes.
Okay. Okay, all right. So thank you very much, madam. And these are some wonderful responses.
There is one more answer. Yes, one more answer, sir. It's about landscape of Galegaon. Kishore Dungana says about landscape of Galegaon.
Okay, all right. So these are wonderful responses. When a teacher thinks of taking students to research something in the community, and when a teacher thinks of giving students more exposure to Ghale culture, that is mentioned in the text. And if a teacher also plans to explore more about food items, and if our teacher thinks about designing own questions, this is what I wanted to establish. Means there is always a room for teachers, and those teachers who have understood the value of making students think and learn will always work in that directions. So the whole argument here is that sadly, many of our textbooks have these sort of questions, they seem to be confined to lower order of thinking. And if if teachers do not think of taking students beyond what is given in the textbook, teachers and students both are always at a loss. That is what I wanted to argue. And thank you so much for your response. Now I would like to present some supplemental activities for critical thinking and cultural learning based on the lesson I just presented. Let us think, some opportunities that we can offer to our students. Say travel experience. If we ask our students to write a couple of paragraphs about their feelings in relation to their travel experience, you might be thinking of writing about feelings sounds simple, but I'm using it with a certain rationale behind it. Means I'm thinking of something wholly original from a student side. Means encouraging students to write about their own travel experience, bringing in their original feelings, about that travel, about the journey. And and how could teachers do that? Teachers can do by asking questions, guiding questions like, why do people travel? Why do you think they went there? For example, this writer and her parents went to the Khalegaon and they were paying guests there. You can build up several questions around what is given in the text. So you ask them, why do you think they went there? Why do people go on a holiday? And do you like to travel? Or have you traveled with your family? If guide your students around this sort of questions, that will give them an opportunity to think more. And with your support, with some guiding streams of sentences, they will come off with something wholly original. That's very important. Or you can also make culture visible through drawings or using newspaper cutouts for writing about your students' culture. So in this text, if you look at closely, you find that there is a mention of greeting, there is a mention of food and drinks, and there is an indirect indication about what they do. Means accepting guests as paying guests and serving this. That's how they are making a living. Look at, if you look into the dynamics of this Gale culture, you can think a whole range of new ideas there. And as we came across some of the slides that gave us the idea that some elements of culture are visible, explicit, and some are not explicit. So how do people create? And means and greet when they first meet, okay? And how do they welcome their guests? And what do they ask when they first meet? Means what are their first accents, questions? What do they eat or wear on special occasions? And how do they make a living? And when you encourage students for this kind of activity or writer, you should always try to ensure the use of songs of language associated with different cultural behavior. That's very important. See, one single lesson can be given several adaptations or extensions. And another way of looking at this lesson would be using identity well. means you can let your students explore their identities. I heard one participant rightly point out culture, one identity is one of the most important component of culture. Each human being is a cultural being, and so how to let our students explore their identities. When they can understand their identities better, they can understand their family or their community. And when they understand their community better, they will be able to arrive at the space from where they can understand the identities of global people. They will arrive at a zone of understanding their identity as a global citizen. Look at, it might sound very simple, but there is a rich connection. So as a teacher, you can model it. You can, develop this identity will, and you can display it on the screen or draw it on the whiteboard. It's up to you. And then you can write your name, you can write your religion, you can write your ethnic identity, you can write hobby identity. Means what is that you really passionate about? What is that you are really passionate about? You write that, because that is something that helps other people recognize you better. So you write your hobby identity, and you write your family identity. Means maybe your birth, maybe you are a son or a daughter. Means what's your position in the family. And then you write your socioeconomic, it means your class. And you can also write about gender identity, male or female, or how you prefer to express your identity, gender identity. And then you write your age identity. There could be many. This is just an example. So then your students will come up with this identity will, and you can pin up this identity will on the wall. And you can ask students to observe each other's identity will, and it would, believe me, a wonderful experience for students to understand at the basic level. So when they understand their identity, and they will begin to understand how culture is built up with several elements, including their identity. And this is how we help. And do remember, this kind of exercise will always exercise their critical bent of mind. So then another example 4, you can also try out a poster presentation. Well, the writer went to a Galegaon, a village named Galegaon. Now you can, give a, project, a presentation title, The City We Dream to Visit. So, and then you can give clues to them: location, population, ethnic groups, religion, family roles and types, clothing, business, means what do they do for what do they do to make a living, and greetings, the patterns of that, and their good manners, or you could say good habits, etiquettes and manners, you can say. So you can give these components. All right, in your present poster presentation, you will incorporate these elements. You will tell them. And how will these, be materialized? Students, first work in groups to collect information about the city they choose. Let them choose their city. It could be the city in their country, or it could be the city in any country in any part of the world. Then they collect information from internet or magazine or newspaper and books. What is feasible for them? And then they use images from the newspapers or magazine and or drawings to illustrate the city. If they do not have anything, they can use their drawings. And at the hands of a good teacher, nothing is impossible. And they present their findings. And now you see, this last stage is very, very important, both in terms of cultural learning and critical thinking. Students present their findings to other classes or sections. You might be wondering why. There is nothing wrong in allowing your students to present their findings to their friends in the classroom. But it would be a great fun with more challenges when you ask them to present, their findings to the next class or the next section. Believe me, there will be more sensation, more interest. And they will, explain the information and illustration on the posters is, developed, presented on the posters. And they will also answer questions from the participants, from the audiences. Believe me, if you give it a try, it would be a wonderful way of, promoting cultural learning and critical thinking. Then, critical thinking and cultural learning, example 5. Could you please use the chat box to separate them? Now, having discussed a little bit theoretical stuff in the beginning, and gone through some practical examples, I think we have arrived at a better position to
Sorry,
separate.
Gunarat sir. So sorry to cut in midway. I'm afraid we've come to the end of time due to a time constraint. I'm afraid we'll have to move on to our question and answer round. I do apologize.
How much time is left?
I'm afraid it's we've already gone overboard by 15 minutes.
Okay, all right. So I would. So could you give me just a couple of minutes, 5 minutes at least?
Sure. Let's finish this last slide, and then Sarita Madam would come in for the Q&A part. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So then okay, all right. So then you can make sense. All right. So food and drinks would go to formal surface culture. Work ethic, I think you have got a good guess, comes to deep culture.
Deep culture.
Deep culture.
Deep culture.
Festivals that is easy to observe or identify goes to, formal or surface culture. Dance, easy to observe, goes to surface culture. Roundhouses, that is reading text, that is surface culture. Attitudes, difficult to identify. So means it's related to the psyches of the people. So deep culture, religious belief, deep culture. Holidays, observable, so formal or surface culture. Costumes, surface culture. Marigold garland, that is used in the text, surface culture. Expectations,
deep culture.
hospitality, deep culture. Tika,
deep culture. Surface.
Surface.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes,
Excuse me,
please.
sir.
Yes, ma'am.
The participants, mute yourself, please.
Okay. All right. So because of time constraint, so let me give you a brief, picture of, if you look at this example, very quickly, you will notice that this is in this exercise, an opportunity has been missed, to engage students with, rich language and culture exercise. There is a limitation. I like, I enjoy. I like, I enjoy. This sounds very repetitive, but if you give a little modification to that exercise, you can find, see, for example, your students walk in pair and you give the verb go, play and do. An example, I go swimming because it keeps me fit. Now you see, I play volleyball because your students supply the reason. I go fishing because your students supply the reason. See, and you can also ask them to think of other 5 sports and activities and give reasons why they like or dislike. Or you can ask, why do you think play video games? Who do you think play video games more, village children or town children? You see, one single question.
Excuse me, Guna sir.
Yes,
Excuse
please.
me, Guna sir.
Yes, please.
Sorry to interrupt you in the middle. So we are running out of time, sir. So could you please conclude now?
All right.
It's
So
already
I'm
5 minutes more.
okay.
Thank
All
you, sir.
right.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so you can also have a variation like complete this statement with the correct box, and then you can see there that's the point of this form. Not because I enjoy it, I only do something. So if you give, it will give students. So I'm coming towards the end. So there are some tips for critical thinking and cultural learning. You can encourage cross-ethnic, religious, and ability friendship. It might sound simple, but this is small friendships, can help build up good relationship. You can, build your questions around how and why. You can give some wait time for your students to think. You can always encourage students to offer alternatives. You, instead of asking closed questions, you can ask them to clarify their meanings, and you can always encourage agreement and disagreement on the issues or examples presented, and that will always help students to come up. I'm sorry I couldn't give justice to a couple of slides in the end. So here I come with the conclusion. So my whole idea is that we as teachers should try to expand the zone of textbook, because as the experts say, and we have seen some examples, no textbook perfectly integrates language and cultural learning. And we should explore cultural knowledge our students already have, because the concept of culture complements to their understanding, their own experience. And this all can be done by asking some meaningful questions that will deepen students thinking and cultural learning, because teachers are great source of all these informations, and they are cultural informats for their students. So these are useful links for
Uh,
you, and these are the references that I
so there are some
use.
questions. Sir, there are
So
some questions. Would you like to take the questions, sir? So this is
yes, ma'am.
by Ramesh Muriji. Yeah, students are inclined to alien language from the day one, and the parents too. In that condition, how can we motivate learners in their culture?
All right. So as I have presented in this webinar, uh, each student is a cultural being. So we cannot say that students are not interested in learning about their culture. The question comes to us as teachers: do we really give them enough opportunities to think about who they are? What is their role in the family? What community they come from? If we give them, to think about and work around these basic questions, I think, they will have more interest in learning about culture. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. There is one more. I think we can take only one question because we don't have time. So I'm reading Prem Bahadur Vishwakarma ji's question. Are there any questions asking reasoning of students? Are there any questions asking reasoning of students? This is the question from Prem Bahadur Vishwakarma. And there is another question, Tulsi Neopani, that I think you have already covered this question. Are there any specific steps to generate critical thinking in the learner? So I think you have already covered that question. So one more question, only one question, sir. We have run
All right.
out of time, sir. Thank
So all right. If you go beyond from what and where and when kind of questions, and always invite your students to answer your why and how questions. I'm sure your students will have a lot of opportunities for reasoning. That's not that difficult. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have come to the end of the program webinar. So for the concluding remarks, I would like to thank you, Guna sir, for presenting the topic, integrating cultural learning and critical thinking in the EFL classroom. It's a burning topic of today and the need of global village or intercultural world. You explained culture through three P's: perspective, practices, and products. You also talked about critical thinking through Bloom's taxonomy and the examples from the textbook with simple activities related with the areas of your topic. I remembered while talking about Khalegaon, I remembered Vaishaliji's one presentation on virtual field trip. That was really good. So I think we can use that in the context. So critical thinking, teaching critical thinking is a challenge for the teachers, and your topic was really challenging, I suppose, and the teachers might have been got ideas, and they are going to have some takeouts from you. Thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you all the participants for your wonderful participation and your patience and your question answer round. Thank you very much. Thank you, British Council, Bhogendraji, Radhaji, and Moti Kala Subadewan, our president, for being with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarita ji.